So first of all, I wanted to address also that as only almost 10 days are left for the exam, and I'm sure the nerves are quite tensed up and everybody's feeling the pressure, and there's anxiety also, there's nervousness as well to take the examination, which is quite natural. And I want to, remind you, all of you, that it is a very natural feeling to feel that pressure towards the last 2 weeks before the exam. So try to just not get too overwhelmed with that feeling, and try to still remind yourself of the preparation that you're doing. Focus more on preparing every day, and don't just go intensely altogether 7 to 8 hours. Just study maybe 1 hour at a time and take a 15-minute break. So in between, taking small breaks will also help you during this time. And then also making sure that you're revising the content that you've already prepared instead of going for newer questions now or completely unseen questions. Focus on the questions that you have already prepared, already done, and learn and practice the techniques that we have learned in the class, especially the rash technique. When you're applying the rash technique to the SBQs, make sure the concepts that go with that, which help you answer the question or sequence the concept or match with the history related decisions. Practice all those concepts from your hot notes. If hot notes feel too intense for you and you have done a good revision of hot notes already, you can simply go to the mind maps now and prepare the entire topic using your mind maps as your cue cards, as your information pieces, which will help you revise the entire topic with just one slide at a time. And you can do that, practice with also one of your study partners. You can get together on Zoom with your study partners and use the mind maps to revise and discuss the entire hot topic at one place. It will be a quick revision tool. And then based on that, you can also, along with the theory, you can also focus on Mega Master file revisions, Ultimate Advanced file revisions, and Ultimate Advanced file volume 2 revisions. Those will be the most important and handy files towards the end for quick review. So the files and the mind maps and hot notes for theory, and then the solid guidelines, whether it's your therapeutic guidelines, Odell case revisions, infection control guidelines, bloodborne virus related guidelines, code of conduct, trauma guidelines. All those are the most crucial material that you can now focus on in the last 10 days, and then just forget about everything else. Even for the UAF, MMF, and UAF2, you have the power notes. Then for all the theory that ADC asks you, you have your mind maps and hot notes. Other than that, you have your entire guidelines to review. TG, one more revision you can do for TG in these 10 days. Same for your infection control guidelines, trauma guidelines, as well as your code of conduct and Odell cases. So now the power notes, Sakshi, you can do two approaches. Either you go on the app and take the UAF volume 2, UAF volume 1, and MMF mocks, which are available there. That is, and wherever you make mistakes, only read those power notes. That can be one approach, Sakshi, right? Because if you have done 3, 4 revisions of these important files, now you can focus on wherever you make mistakes, go review those theories from the power notes. And if you're making still more mistakes, if you're getting 60 and 70% still, I would say completely solve the file and then completely go through the power notes all over again. If you read it entirely, you will get that 10% jump immediately. So again, where you are at, what scores you're getting, based on that, you either require an entire complete reading, or you can read only, if you're already scoring 85 plus in those files, then you can just focus on the questions that you're making mistakes at, analyze those mistakes, understand why you're still making those mistakes at this point, what concept is still not clear. So clarify those concepts from the hot notes, from the mind maps, from the power notes. And then also, if still remaining, message me on WhatsApp and get it sorted there. So I hope that gives you a good method right here, how to approach the power notes and solving the UAF1, UAF2, and MMF. So apply that, because based on what scores you're getting, it will give you a good insight of how much of the time you need to invest on it more. Then other than that, I think a lot of you have seen that approach on a lot of Facebook groups and a lot of academies giving out certain hand-picked topics and telling that they are important for the exam, they are relevant for the exam. I would completely advise against falling in trap of all those claims, because this examination already always asks those topics, those 5 6 handpicked topics, like they are the core TG topics. They are always the part of exam. They are not new. They are the core topics of this examination. So I will never advise you to go for handpicked topics and people who tell you, oh, just do this, just do that. That is enough to pass any undergrad exam and get the passing scores. But let me reiterate, as I told you yesterday also in our internal class, that this examination is not just getting a pass score. This examination is the competitive examination. Only the top scorers get the maximum passes. So make sure you're doing the entire syllabus in a wholesome way. Somebody tells you this subject is not so important, that is not important, only this is important, that is important, that cherry picking, and then that hand-picked approach does not work to crack a competitive exam. That is for an average candidate who wants to clear an undergrad dental subject examination in college. There it works, but not in ADC. For ADC, the maximum knowledge that you can get, the maximum information that you can get, the maximum question practice that you get, that prepares you for the maximum scores, and the top 25-30% get chosen. So for you all, you already have that material available on the app. You have 160 mocks to practice all kind of practice questions, whether asked in exam or whether the new questions. 160 mocks are combination of new questions and the existing examination questions. You have all the hot notes on the most important core topics. You have the Pioneer mock, you have the Pioneer links to prepare for the latest topics. So even if the Pioneer topics may be 5%, but I have given you a mock on that, and I have given you a preparation links for that. And if the core concepts are 90% of the exam, I have given you hot notes, power notes, mind maps, lectures, TG classes, ODEL classes, everything on that. So I don't prepare, and the program does not prepare you that what gets asked 5%, what gets asked 90%. Overall, we prepare to get 95% score in every file, every mock that we attempt. That what takes you to the success. So wholesome, holistic preparation of core as well as the pioneer topics combined that you are doing at Winspert is the correct approach. So do not fall in trap of last minute, oh, do this topic, do that topic. Suture came last time, that and this. One question will not decide your future. The maximum passes that we get is because of the core preparation that we do at Winspert. The hard gymming that we do at Winspert, the hard work that we do at Winspert every single day when you come and watch and you read and you assess yourself, that single atomic habit of doing every day translate to success. Now, ODEL at this stage, Shweta, I'll tell you how I used to do it was. Now, the classes revision is not required. What you can do is, again, with your study partner, it's a beautiful method, and you can quickly revise in 15 minutes one ODEL case. So assign your study partner maybe 2 cases per day and assign yourself ODEL 2 cases per day. 2 cases you will prepare and 2 cases your study partner can prepare. You meet on Zoom for your revision time. You get 15 minutes to recalibrate, recollect, and put together and explain to her all the learning points and concepts covered in that OT. What is the investigation? What is it? So you'll start with the chief complaint. You'll start with the clinical presentation, signs and symptoms, examination, sign and symptoms, your findings, your clinical presentation and clinical findings, all the investigations that you are required to, confirm your diagnosis, your list of differential diagnosis. Then based on that, what is the final diagnosis? Then your treatment plan. Again, I told you yesterday also, Shweta, if you remember, that based on the patient's requirements, based on the patient's needs, then the financial constraints on the patients, what is the time period that patient has to invest on the treatment, and what is the life expectancy the patient is expecting from the treatment. There can be various various factors which can impact your treatment selection. So focus on those tables, the Odell tables, which talk about different treatment plans, their pros and their cons. And then after treatment plan evaluation, follow-up protocol is also given in the Odell cases. All that in 15 minutes, you can quickly summarize information gathering related investigation, clinical presentation, diagnosis and management cluster, what are the differential diagnoses, how to confirm the diagnosis, and then the treatment and evaluation cluster, what are the various treatment plans available and what are the follow-up protocol. This is how you can prepare each Odell case divided in 3 clusters. Yes or no? Now, does that simplify doing an Odell case? If you go to any single Odell case, this is exactly how it is framed. This is exactly how that is designed. So I'm giving you a quick 5-minute breakdown of each Odell case on investigation, information gathering area, then the diagnosis and management planning area, and then the treatment planning and evaluation cluster. So when you segregate information underneath the clusters and when you discuss it with your study partner, you're revising the entire Odell case in just 15 minutes, and also you're preparing the cluster wise concepts simultaneously. Does that give a complete distinct understanding and a thorough simplified method of revising Odell and how to use it for the ADC cluster wise questions? Any question? Does that help? So now that would be how you prepare your and revise your Odell cases. So if you're doing 15 minutes, you're doing per case, and you're doing 2 and your study partner is doing 2. In 1 hour, you do 4 cases. We have how many on the list? Somewhere about 40 cases in Odell that we have on the list, right? So if you're doing 4 cases per day in an hour, so then in the next 10 days, you would be reviewing 49, yeah? Right. So maybe in the 12 days, next 12 days, you can completely thoroughly finish all the Odell cases. Doable. 1 hour per day dedicated to Odell, 1 hour per day dedicated to TG revision, and TG and ICG combined, like half an hour TG, half an hour ICG. So these 2 hours for these high yield topics, high yield resources, another 2-3 hours for your UAF1, UAF2 Mega Master, and then another 2-3 hours for power note reading, hot note reading, and your mind map reading. Make sense? Does that give you a perspective? 6 to 7 hours, 2 hours for Odell, TG, ICG, and other guidelines, 2-3 hours for all your mocks and MCQ practice, SBQ practice, and then the third one, your Pioneer links, your hot notes, your mind map. So policies are covered in the hot notes, right? The health promotion hot notes, Amrit. So if you keep 2-3 hours for theory, 2-3 hours for SBQs, and 2-3 hours for Odell, TG, and other guidelines, then combined 8 to 9 hours during these last 10 days, I think you can easily manage, right? Depends, Hannah, how many times you have watched the UAF classes. I highly recommend at least twice you must have watched them to completely grasp the concepts covered in them. If you've already watched twice, you still are scoring low, watch one more time. But if you've watched twice and you're scoring also good, then go to the power notes now. Make sense, Hannah? All right. So that would be it in terms of, I will again, I think next week have a dedicated class on this so I can address more of your questions on utilizing the last 10 days. Let's have another session, something on the lines where I can give you these tips and you can utilize your last 10 days extremely well and focus on the important sources, all these important sources, and prepare each of them really in depth. So let's have another dedicated session on it. Meanwhile, let's start with our today's topic. And I'm sure you enjoyed yesterday's sleep apnea class as well. So we are going to have another session on that next week. We'll finish that. We'll practice 2 SBQs on that as well. Today I'm doing suture. It's a small topic, so focusing only in one class. And towards the end, we will also discuss one SBQ on the suture. So that'll also make you happy, give you practice of concepts that you learned today. So let's start about the suture and suturing techniques and why it's important, because in the ADC exam, as we know, the extraction is one of the very crucial, repeatedly asked concept. So extraction, especially third molars, are asked, and the techniques, the difficulties, and where the referral is needed. These questions are extremely commonly asked in the ADC exam. You have seen in UF1, you've seen in UF2 as well. The third molar extractions and other extraction challenges questions are getting asked in exam. So with that, the newer questions that came were the choice of suture. So today we are going to talking a little bit more elaborately about the suture material choice, suture techniques, which techniques are preferred in the oral surgery, in the oral cavity, which materials are preferred, absorbable, non-absorbable, synthetic or natural. We are going to compare them all, talk about the benefits and drawbacks of all as well. So we do understand that effective wound management is required in oral surgery, and that is why the complete tissue healing, understanding of what is the wound type, what should be the selection and the technique of the suture. So they are very commonly used in the minor oral surgeries as well, third molar surgeries as well, and they are the very common method of wound closure. And now these days there are certain other alternatives also which are coming up, like surgical adhesive, staples and tapes also. They are getting popular even in oral surgery. So keep that in the back of your mind. If you don't get sutures option, then surgical adhesives, staples and tapes, they are also now getting some popularity in oral surgery. So basically for the wound management, the main steps which are involved is first the cleansing and debridement of the wound, achieving hemostasis, tetanus immunization, then giving wound dressing and closure, and then antibiotic therapy if required as per the patient's condition. So wound closure is really necessary, especially when there is a significant exposure of connective tissue. That means in third molar surgeries, it is quite possible, especially when if it is deeply seated tooth, right? So wound closure is extremely important where the large exposure of connective tissue is seen, and that is possible, that is likely in your third molar surgeries. But the primary reason why you do the suturing is because you want to bring the wound edges together to support the healing, to minimize scarring, and also to reduce the post-op infection risk. So if the question asks you what is the primary reason for suturing, it is to bring the edges together. It minimizes the scarring, supports healing, and also reduces infection risk. These are the four primary benefit of suturing. Bringing the wound edges together, healing support, less scarring, and reduced infection risk. Does that make complete sense for everyone? The benefits. Okay. So now you require a certain armamentarium, and the ADC has asked you about the suture, but the other armamentarium can also get asked in exam. So again, I would draw your attention toward this slide and want you to memorize it. You basic tools that you will use in suturing would be a needle holder, a tissue forceps, and a suture scissor. So you have needle holder also has a name, so that if in exam you get options of names, the types, you must know them. And with this class, it would be clear, so you don't have to worry about now going opening textbooks and finding other names. So basically the needle holder is used to hold and drive the needle through the tissues, right? So you hold the needle with the needle holder. And types are called Mayo Hager and Webster. So you can remember these two names. Any of these two names, if given in the exam as option, you will be able to choose, right? Mayo Hager and Webster. Then and most of the times they come with a locking mechanism, which gives you a good grip on the needle. So these needle holders, they also come with their inbuilt locking mechanism, which gives a strong grip on the needle so that there is no slip inside the mouth or any other area wherever you're suturing, and there is no risk of any other added injury. Now the tissue forceps, as the name says, helps to hold the tissues. It helps to lift and avert the wound edges. So that means it helps to hold and lift and avert the wound edges. That means the tissue it holds during the stitching. So the name for that is Adson forceps. That is why if you see the name Adson, now in the exam they can ask you for the needle holder and give you the both names, Mayo Hager and Adson. So you must know Adson is the tissue forceps and Mayo Hager is the needle holder. Can you memorize these names? These three names I would ask you to memorize, that's all. So just memorize the names, and in the exam if different options are given, you must know what each instrument is called. Now the suture scissors, they are called suture scissors only. They are designed to cut the sutures safely after you tie the knot without damaging surrounding tissue. So they have specific blunt edges. That is why they are designed to cut the sutures but safely without impinging on the adjacent soft tissue. So suture needles also that you will use. So these are the suture needle types. They have different shape, they have different sizes. So mostly they are curved, right? Now the curve can be different circumference of the circle. This is 1/4 of the circle circumference. This is 3/8 of the circle circumference. This is entirely half. This is 5/8. This is J-shaped, and this is a straight suture needle. So the suture needle is the one that guides the thread or the suture through the tissues, and minimal trauma should be induced. It is made of stainless steel or carbon steel. Please memorize that. The material that is used for suture needles is stainless steel or carbon steel. And it has three parts: tip, body, and suture attachment end, which is the swaged end where the suture is attached. Now that can have either an eye or a single use where the suture will be fused with the swaged end. Okay. So now this, for your oral surgeries, oral and maxillofacial surgeries, can anyone tell which is the most common needle and size that is used? Anyone on the chat if you could put it. Amongst the given, you have 1/4. Okay, I've already given the answer on the screen, Pragya. 1/2 is the commonest that is used in oral surgery. Okay. So 1/2 is the commonest size of the suture needle which is used in oral surgery. Now, this can also be a direct question in exam. 3/8, 1/2, 5/8, all can be given to you. J-shape can be given to you. So if asked for the oral surgery, can you safely choose 1/2 as the commonest one which is used? Clear for everyone? All right. So now the needles can be either having an eye, which are reusable, where you can put the fresh suture every time, or they can be swaged, where the thread or the suture is fused with the end. Now the drawback of the eye is, yes, the benefit is that it's reusable. Cost-wise, it's effective, but there is a tissue drag. There is more tissue drag and more trauma because where you tie the thread or suture, it becomes a little thick knot. Whereas the swaged one is an atraumatic one and it has thread which is fused to the needle, so it causes less trauma, and that's why even called atraumatic needles. Clear for everyone? So atraumatic needles and the eyed. Simple. Look at this, Taranu. Here you see the hole. This is the eye one. Taranu, do you see the 1/2 in this box? All the holes that you see, these are eyed suture needles. And here, when you see there is no eye, right? This is also 1/2 suture needle, but there is no eye, and the suture is fused with them. By the manufacturer, it's a single-use needle, comes fused with the suture thread. Clear for you, Taranu? So in this one, you have to manually add the suture. This one comes attached with the thread, right? Clear for everyone? Yeah, we are going to now talk about, Aditi, we are coming to the material as well. First, I want to talk about the armamentarium. Then we talk about the suture needles. And now we will talk about the materials and the choices. So far this is the shape and the suture needle types is clear for everyone. Eyed and swaged, traumatic and atraumatic one. Okay. Now let's talk about the suture material classification. Sutures are classified either based on their material or their absorbability or the number of filaments that they have or the sizes. These are the 4 categories by which you classify your sutures. Now, Aditi, your questions so far in the exam has come for the material, but now the questions can also be asked about just not the material, but also on the absorbability, but also on the filament type and also on the sizes type, right? So let's learn deeper into the suture classification and the selection and the preferred choices in oral surgery. Okay. So number one, source type is either natural or synthetic. Now, the natural materials are catgut, silk, cotton, and synthetic materials are nylon, polyester, or PGA, right? Whereas on the absorbability, there can be absorbable ones which gradually degrade and they are absorbed by the body itself. You do not require to manually remove them. Whereas a non-absorbable one should be removed manually after healing. They have to be cut and removed manually. Filament type also designates it as monofilament and multifilament. Monofilament is a single strand. There is less risk of infection because there is no capillary effect. Whereas in the multifilament, it is a braided filaments. There is a better knot security compared to a monofilament. So the knot security comes better with the multifilament than the monofilament, but there is a higher risk of bacterial colonization. So it obviously becomes an obvious choice. Monofilament would be preferred in oral cavity, right? Because of the lower risk of infection. Then based on the sizes, 1 to 11 sizes are available. Smaller the number, thicker the thread, just like your needle gauges, right? Clear for everyone? So smaller the numbers, thicker the threads, and the most common intraoral sizes are 3 and 3 to 5. So can you memorize the oral cavity sizes as well? Is that also clear? Which is the preferred size in intraoral wound closure. So these 4 categories are clear. 1 to 11 are available. Tanveer, oral cavity, you prefer sizes 3 to 5. Clear, Tanveer? Everyone else as well. These 4 criteria of classification, the source, absorbability, filament wise, and sizes. These are the categories for now. We will talk about individual material now. Smaller the number, thicker the thread. Can you remember that? Smaller the number, thicker the thread. All right, Ashlesha? Now let's talk about each material individually. We will come to the derivations in the end. Let's understand the concepts. Let's not jump to the conclusions unless you have understood every material and the quality of absorbability or non-absorbability, multifilament or single monofilament. Let's consider all the concepts and then you will give me the answer yourself. So now the natural absorbable material is catgut and chromic gut, right? It is a not natural but absorbable. Natural and non-absorbable will become silk. This is clear for everyone. These 2 categories are clear because exam can ask you, give you various options and ask you which is natural absorbable, which is natural non-absorbable, which is synthetic non-absorbable, which is synthetic absorbable. All these 4 categories can be asked in exam. Will you be able to choose if I give you multiple options amongst the given which applies to that category? Can we focus on learning these categories? So the natural absorbable one is catgut and chromic gut. They are derived from animals' intestines and they are digested by the enzymes in the oral cavity. They have high tissue reactivity and poor strength. And chromic catgut is also the catgut suture, which is treated with chrome salts for delayed absorption and reduces the tissue reaction, but not entirely because still there is a foreign element, animal protein, animal intestine tissue material. So it acts as a foreign material, right? Yes, understood. Natural, absorbable, catgut and chromic gut, and the disadvantages and the derived, there it is derived from. The disadvantages, high tissue reactivity and poor strength. Clear for everyone? The natural absorbable category is clear for everyone. So I can move to the natural non-absorbable one. So now the natural non-absorbable is silk. It is very commonly used natural non-absorbable suture. So when somebody asks you in exam, which natural material will you use? Considering all catgut, chromic catgut and silk, which will you choose? Which is the preferred natural material? Answer would obviously be silk. You will not choose catgut and chromic gut nimra because that induces reactions, right? So Dara, the question that you asked also, when the patient has allergies and reactions, you will not choose catguts and chromic catguts in those patients. They induce foreign body reactions, high tissue reactivity is seen. So you will choose inert materials in your patients who have allergies or foreign body reactions. Clear for everyone? So overall, if a question is given, which natural is most preferred versus catgut, chromic catgut, silk, now tell me which one is most preferred. Yes, Divya, we'll talk about synthetic also. Let me just take you one step at a time. I want to build your concepts, please. I mean, I could give you the verdicts right away, right? Give you a question and give you the final answer. But this class's motive is that you understand every category in depth. Understood, right? So now tell me, Divya, which natural would you most preferred if asked intraorally? You asked me question, Dara. You tell me allergy to what? I answered your question. You tell me what you were asking. What was your allergy to? Then I will answer based on that. So yes, the correct answer will be silk there. Okay. So so silk is the most commonly used natural non-absorbable suture, easy to handle, but it can also incite a tissue reaction, but it is still used in oral surgery. Now, if you want to use absorbable sutures, then would you go for natural absorbable or synthetic absorbable? Give me answer to that based on the tissue reactions. So if at all your choice is an absorbable category, then would you go for synthetic absorbable or natural absorbable? So forget catgut, chromic catgut, not very contemporary materials. Now these days, the modern synthetic absorbable materials are your first line of choice. Okay? So synthetic absorbable, which include PGA, which is your polyglycolic acid, or polyglactin 910, which is Vicryl, right? And then others which are used, which are not so common in intraoral environment are your polyglycaprone, polydioxanone, and polyglyconate and polyglytone. So those four, after PG and Vicryl, these two are common intraorally because their strength is also up to 2 weeks to 4 weeks. Rest of them, these monocryl, PDS, polyglyconate and polyglytone, they absorb after 100 days or 3 to 4 months. So they are good for major surgeries on the skin and internal organs, but not intraorally. So Tanveer, exactly what I'm saying, intraorally, PGA, which is polyglycolic acid, versus and also Vicryl, which is polyglactin 910. Yes, Raman, Vicryl is polyglactin 910. These two are most common intraoral sutures. So, if you compare PGA versus Vicryl, if both options were given in the exam, which one will you choose? So, PGA versus polyglactin. PGA full form is polyglycolic acid. PGA full form is polyglycolic acid. Vicryl is polyglactin 910. Between these two, Vicryl is more superior in absorption. Both are braided, both are multifilament, but better absorption and strength comes from your Vicryl. So you will choose polyglactin 910, Dara. Answer would be Vicryl, not PGA. That's clear? We have chosen that in our UAF2 class also, Dara. Vicryl, polyglactin 910. When Vicryl is not given as an option, then your second choice is PGA. So sequencing, everybody, for rash technique sequencing concept coming up here. If Vicryl is not given as an option, then PGA. That's clear for everyone. Dara, for you as well. And the third category is synthetic but non-absorbable, which is nylon, polypropylene, polyester, PTFE, stainless steel. Well, they are not so common for third molar surgeries because third molar surgeries, you prefer the absorbable ones. So for third molar surgery, Vicryl number 1, PGA number 2. Synthetic non-absorbable work really well for your implant surgeries. And for the implant surgeries, which is the best? Can anyone tell? Synthetic, non-absorbable amongst these, which is the preferred suture for implants? So PTFE, the Teflon, is the ideal choice for implants. Okay? So these are the 4 categories. So for implant, if it gets asked, because they are non-absorbable, for implant, they are monofilament. So they are monofilament, Sakshi. Extremely minimal reaction, extreme minimal bacterial contamination because of no braiding. So because implant is a foreign object that you're adding, so you want the most inert, safest suture material, which is PTFE. It is ideal for your implant surgeries. PTFE is a Teflon, right? So polyteflon, the full form of your PTFE. It's called your Teflon coating, right? So your polypropylene and your polyester, they are used for the skin and vascular surgeries, not for oral surgeries. And then nylon is also good. It is also monofilament, but not is harder in nylon. And stainless steel is also very thin. Stainless steel is used, but they are extremely strong, but they are difficult to handle, and they are used for orthopedic and sternal closure bone surgeries. So will you remember that? Yes, Aditi, wonderful summarization here. Okay, beautiful summarization, Aditi. Clear for everyone. Polypropylene is used in skin surgeries and vascular surgeries, not intraorally. Polyester, again, used in cardiovascular surgeries. Okay, so the summary is, if the question asks non-absorbable suture, which one will you prefer? You will prefer silk, Aurora. If the exam asks which is the inabsorbable type, which is the most preferred material, then synthetic absorbable. Sequencing wise, number 1 Vicryl and number 2 is PGA, polyglycolic acid. Clear for you, Aurora? Then comes for implant, the preferred material is synthetic, non-absorbable, and amongst those PTFE, which is monofilament, minimal bacterial growth. And unlike nylon, the knot is also not hard because nylon has a drawback. The knot tying is harder in nylon. Will you remember that? Nylon has a drawback. The knot tying is harder in your nylon. No plain gut. Plain gut is not preferred. Okay. Gut is all your cat gut. No, Raman, don't prefer that. They induce the foreign body reactions. Now coming to the technique. So the material wise and category wise, everything is clear. And all the summary is added to your hot notes. One single page, the entire summary is added there. Now the material technique or the suture techniques are simple interrupted, simple buried, vertical mattress, simple continuous. You don't have to worry about the techniques which are not used intraorally. So I'm going to be only talking about the ones which are very commonly used intraorally. Okay, so these simple interrupted, it is a very basic stitch. Each loop is tied individually. It is a very strong wound security, but the drawback is it can leave visible scars because there is a separate suturing interruptedly. So the drawback is scars. Now the knot which remains underneath the skin, which is given underneath the skin, it's called buried, simple buried technique. It is used for deeper tissue layers, prevents any external stitch, so good for cosmetic areas. So it's good for dermal and skin suturing, not intraorally again. So these are good for your skin suturing. Then a vertical mattress technique. It again includes deep suturing also and superficial bites also for enhanced wound edge eversion. So for larger surface areas, larger wounds, it has good tensile strength and again common for skin surfaces, larger skin suturings. Simple continuous is also a technique which runs along the wound with knots only at both the ends. So one knot here and one knot at the end. So it's a simple technique but not interrupted but rather continuous. Only two knots. So it is a fast technique, but if you fail one loop, the whole suture can get unraveled. So it is a technique sensitive method of simple continuous technique. Other is a locking continuous, which is still one knot in the beginning and one knot in the end, unlike your simple interrupted. But the good point is, like your simple continuous has a risk that if one suture gets missed, the entire it gets unravel. But here you have a locked version. So you lock each loop, each suture, and it gives you better tension and gives better wound alignment. Again, intraorally, they are not required as much. Subcuticular also on the face, on the skin. Purse string, 3-point. These 3-pointed ones are for cleft lips. So the most important one for intraoral techniques. Let's talk about which one would you prefer intraorally. So simple interrupted ones are the most common post extraction where you need to give only 2 or 3 sutures. You can give 2 or 3 simple interrupted ones. Can you memorize these? This slide can you memorize? It will help you remember every technique with every procedure. Reverse suturing is good for buccal and lingual flaps. Vertical mattress when you have papilla stabilization surgeries. Horizontal mattresses when you are doing edentulous area suturing. Figure of 8 for extraction sockets and achieving hemostasis. And a continuous one or a locking continuous one again where is a long edentulous wound closure needed. Clear for everyone? Will you remember these? So in exam, if you're asked, there's a long edentulous wound and you're suturing back the mucosa on a long edentulous wound, either continuous or locking continuous, right? Or horizontal mattress. And then for your extraction sockets, where you want to also achieve hemostasis, figure of 8. If it's post-surgically, post-extraction, simple interrupted if hemostasis has been achieved. For buccal and lingual flaps, reverse suture, right? And for papilla stabilization, vertical mattress. Clear for everyone? Just take a screenshot of this slide and you're sorted for various procedures and various techniques. Yes or no, please? Clear for everyone or not? Sorted? Simple? These are your common techniques which are used intraorally. Simple interrupted, which is interdental. You will close the flap after extraction or after flap surgeries. Knots are given on the buccal side. See this? This is an interrupted one, right? Knots are given on the buccal aspect. And reverse suturing is used when both buccal and lingual flaps are elevated. Now this is, can you see this long edentulous space and you see continuous locked continuous suturing technique here. Can you all appreciate it's a continuous one, but also locked? Lingually, can you see the locks on the image? Here. So this is your locking continuous. It improves alignment and wound tension control. All right. So now based on the procedure and based on the requirement, you know the technique type as well. Now when to remove, what is the timing that is expected? So in this, the learning point important for you is oral. 5 to 7 days is enough for suture removal if you have non-absorbable intraorally after extraction. Now let's practice this question, which will help you apply the concepts that you have just learned. So a 26-year-old male presents to the emergency department in Melbourne after complicated surgical removal of an impacted mandibular third molar done earlier in the day. He has persistent oozing and episodes of frank bleeding from the socket despite compression with the gauze. Examination shows a deep socket wound involving mucosa and muscle layers with difficulty in hemostasis due to tongue movement and saliva. The attending oral surgeon decides that suturing is mandatory for wound closure and hemostasis. So the presenting history and signs and symptoms, clinical presentation are clear for everyone? Yeah, Nikita here. Can I move now, Nikita? So now the history is clear, right? Now, based on that, the first question is which is the most appropriate suture material for this mandibular third molar socket closure? Now you have all the options given here: plain catgut, chromic catgut, silk, polypropylene. So polypropylene we already discussed that is not used as much in oral mucosa. So E can be ruled out simply. It is not used in oral mucosa because it has poor handling in oral mucosa. It is stiffer, so it is used for your skin surgeries. Now, option D, silk. It is excellent in intraoral environment in terms of handling, but it is non-absorbable. It wicks saliva and bacteria and it requires removal. So that is why not the best choice here. Yes? Understood D reasoning? Now for option C, Vicryl, which is also known as your polyglactin 910, right? It is absorbable, braided, excellent handling in wet oral field as well. And it also gives you very good knot security. And it can retain its strength for up to 2 to 3 weeks. So best suited material for intraoral third molar surgery. C will become your answer. How will you rule out option A and B? Now option A, plain catgut, is absorbable, but it loses its strength very soon. It is not as strong and it also incites a strong inflammatory reaction. Same goes with B. It lasts longer than your plain catgut, but also tissue reactivity is still higher than your synthetics. That is why amongst your natural and synthetics, synthetic Vicryl polyglactin will be preferred. Excellent handling, absorbable, good knot security. Whereas silk, excellent handling but non-absorbable, and because it absorbs saliva and bacteria, can risk for infection. So clear for everyone amongst the given. Now crystal clear for everyone. Answer will become D. All the points, all the reasoning for every other option should also make sense because at Winsford we are not going to mug up any single answer. Now, if the surgeon prefers faster absorption, so that no suture remnants irritate the tongue and cheek beyond the 6 weeks. Which option will fit best for this patient? Amongst these given, which is the best option? So A, Vicryl, because all those material anyways are not used. PTFE is used intraorally, but for implant, and it is non-absorbable. So E is ruled out. It is non-absorbable. It is excellent for implants, but not for sockets. So E gets ruled out. D again, Maxon and your monocryl and your PDS, they're all ruled out because they all are long lasting materials. That's why they are used for other major surgeries and organ surgeries. So B, C, D are ruled out for cardiovascular uses. They're good, but not intraorally because they have excessively longer absorption time, long lasting, more than 100 days, 180 days. Maxon, to, in fact, for 4 to 6 months, doesn't get absorbed. Clear for everyone? So BCD, and that is why intraorally for your sockets, Vicryl, and Vicryl has a subcategory, is a modified Vicryl. It loses its strength within 2 weeks and is fully absorbed within 40 to 50 days. So it is ideal for third molar sockets. Okay, so Vicryl Rapid is a variation of a Vicryl only. Answer for question number 1 was C, Vicryl, not D. Why is silk, though popular in dentistry, not ideal for this patient's case? So why silk is popular, right? But not ideal in our case. So first the answer, let's rule out other options. Option A, which is poor knot security. Is it correct or incorrect? It is incorrect. It has excellent knot capacity. Silk has excellent knot capacity. So we have to find out the drawback of the silk here, right? Not the benefit. Poor knot security is incorrect. Silk has a superior knot capacity, and we have to choose drawback of silk. So poor knot security, is it a drawback of silk or not? Give me yes or no. It is not the drawback of silk because it has good knot security. Okay. So A gets ruled out. Now let's look at option C, completely absorbed in less than 10 days. It is also incorrect. Silk is non-absorbable. So can be our answer. It is fragile with very low tensile strength. It is not extremely low. Silk has moderate tensile strength. It can hold up. So it does not have low tensile strength. That is also incorrect. Shelf life instability also, again, it is not a practical clinical drawback. You have to store it correctly. It works. There is sufficient shelf life. But it causes the wicking of absorption of saliva and bacterial contamination. Yes, because silk has its capillary effect. The handling of silk is beautiful. The knot is beautiful. But the drawback is it is non-absorbable and it has a capillary effect, which is a wicking effect. So it absorbs saliva and bacterial contamination, which can lead to infection in the socket. Wicking means absorption from the surrounding ramen. Clear for everyone why B is the drawback of silk, which does not make it an ideal choice for your sockets, and why we use Vicryl Pologlactin 910, which does not wick, which does not absorb, which is absorbable itself, good knot, good strength, no saliva and bacterial wicking, and absorbable on its own. So Polyglactin 910 Vicryl becomes the ideal choice. Silk, although popular, but for third molar surgery not ideal because of the saliva and bacterial absorption and non-absorbability. Am I making full sense here? Is it giving you complete thorough understanding of this entire lecture being applied to these questions? Now, suppose the patient also had a deep facial tear, which is like deep facials under the skin tear during surgery, which is rare but possible in third molar surgeries. Which absorbable suture would provide long-term strength for fascia closure? So now here you need something that goes for skin. Absolutely beautiful answer, Chena. So here the answer will be B, which is polydioxanone, right? It is a monofilament, long lasting, ideal for fascia. A is not correct because Vicryl is too short lived for fascia. You don't want it to be rapidly absorbed. It is good for mucosa, but not for skin fascia. C is also incorrect because but it gets weakened quickly and it's more preferred for vascular cardiovascular procedures. Again, chromic catgut, and it is stronger than plate catgut, but again, it is inflammatory in nature, so you'll not use it for skin also. Polyester also is used for cardiovascular and ligaments, and it is non-absorbable. So polyester is a synthetic, non-absorbable, just like your nylon, just like your PTFE. So question asked, absorbable. Absorbable here are only these four, A, B, C, D. E is non-absorbable, immediately ruled out. D, reactions. C, not enough strength. B, ideal for fascia and skin. A, again, not enough lasting absorbability for the skin. So good for mucosa, but not for skin. So even if asked for any fascia or skin involvement, polydioxanone would be the preferred one. Now, which property of polyglactin 910 Vicryl makes it superior to chromic catgut for oral mucosa closure? Is it absorbed by proteolysis with strong tissue reaction? Well, it is proteolysis happens, but I told you the protein foreign protein reaction is seen in your polyglactin or your chrome gut or your catgut. So catgut has the foreign protein. Polyglactin does not have protein. So will it be absorbed by proteolysis? No. So proteolysis happens on catgut with enzymes, and that is why the foreign protein can induce a strong reaction, strong tissue reaction. Is that right? Why option A is ruled out? Because that is applicable to chrome gut, not Vicryl. The question asks which property of Vicryl makes it superior. So we have to choose an option which answers the property of Vicryl and not catgut. So option A is ruled out because this is a property of catgut. Now, non-absorbable requires removal. Does your Vicryl requires removal? Is it non-absorbable? No, it's a synthetic absorbable. So B also gets ruled out. Then it has rapid loss of tensile strength within 7 days. No, it has high strength, high tensile strength. In fact, the rapid strength loss will be seen in the catgut and not Vicryl. Vicryl can withstand up to 2 to 3 weeks. Absolutely correct, Taranu. Braided structure, smoother handling due to coating. Now that's an absolute correct answer. D is the answer. It is braided and it has a calcium stearate coating. The coating on polyglactin is calcium stearate, which makes it smoother for the passage through the tissue, better handling, minimum tissue reaction, and reliable absorption within 40 to 50 days. So D is a correct property of polyglactin and which makes it superior than your catgut. Shelf life is not less than 6 months. Every suture has an extended few years shelf life when they are stored properly. So E is also ruled out and not your answer. And that sums up this SBQ. I hope the concepts helped. You could go these properties. Tanveer, all these are added in your hot notes. Go to the hot notes in oral surgery. The suture topic has been added. All the concepts, all the properties have been added and you can prepare there. So I hope this question helped you. Also practice. So now anyone who's looking for the March course enrollment as well, we have our March course enrollment open. We are giving 2 months free access without any extra fees. And all, if you enjoyed today's class and you want to watch other free classes, you can join our free course, which is by getting our app and joining the free mentorship program. And even the missed power sessions, which we have taken extremely powerful, impactful ADC topics as lectures, they are available on our YouTube channel because Facebook does not keep the recordings for long. So all the classes are now on our YouTube channel. So there have been so much impactful ADC classes which will immediately help you answer multiple SBQs in exam in one go. So watch those classes on our YouTube channel. So you can join us, you can join our free mentorship program. And if you are looking for a program which provides you a complete, holistic, wholesome approach for the March 26 exam preparation, then we have opened the early 2 months access with 2 months no charges, and you can get at just 5 months fees. So you can message me on my WhatsApp. You can message our team on Facebook page as well. We'll send you the course details as well. All right. So thank you so much, guys. I hope this class helped you. This is extremely important topic and created a lot of confusion amongst the candidates when we saw those questions on our March 25 exam. And we have done far more in-depth concepts. That is what we exactly do. Figure of 8 is good, especially on the sockets post extraction, Vijaya. When you don't want to do interrupted, it's a small socket, you can easily do the figure of 8. Which question, Shraddha? All of them or the main history? The next class topic, Tanvi, we are going to announce it very soon. And next week it will be on Tuesday, the public session. Internal class will be on Thursday with me, where we will complete and wrap up the sleep apnea. Then tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, you have tutor support class to review your hot notes oral medicine. Dr. Kalai is going to take that class on Saturday and Sunday. So you will finish the oral medicine hot notes. And then next week, Monday, Friday, and Saturday, you're going to have the tutor support classes on health promotion hot notes. So all your health policies, ADA policies, and other health promotion ADJ articles, all the important health promotion hot topics will be reviewed the next week, Monday, Friday, and Saturday. Tomorrow and day after, Saturday and Sunday also, you have Dr. Kalai's tutor support class to complete your oral medicine hot notes revision. Okay. Any more questions? Please feel free to message me on WhatsApp and I'll be happy to answer your doubts. And thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so glad you enjoyed today's class and the concepts were clear, Aisha. It means a lot to me. Thank you, Nimra. I'm so glad you enjoyed it, and applying the concepts directly to the questions immediately gave you a lot of confidence. Thank you, Simra. So glad that you enjoyed watching it and learning from it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.